Everything that you're looking at that's brown, at some point used to be blue. It was all covered in water.
A lot of people that moved up here now want to move away, but they can't afford to. They can't afford to sell their house. They can't afford to drill another well.
How did we get to this point?
By assuming that the water would never run out.
Good evening, I'm Michael Oku. Welcome to a special edition of America Tonight, and welcome to California, which feels a little like a disaster movie waiting to happen. This state is now in its fourth year of extreme drought, and some experts are worried that it could continue for generations. We decided that the best way to cover this story was to take a road trip, and so we traveled some 1,500 miles through a dozen dusty counties, and what we saw was stunning. Images that may come to a town near you, because nearly half of America is living in some kind of drought condition, including Hawaii. Water is flowing in California, but not everywhere. The Central Valley is populated by a string of small communities, each dominated by a huge agricultural business. 25% of all fruits and vegetables consumed in America grow here. What happens to the people when the company towns run dry? 5 hours north of LA, we enter the town of Fairmead to find out. We run into resident Thelma Williams.
That dog's not going to come and attack him.
After the dogs settled down, we asked her about the drought. In the 7 or 8 years that you've been here, have you noticed a difference in terms
All
of
of this
how
used to be
severe the drought
green,
is?
and now it's just so hard and dry. There's things you have to go through, like warm up your water on the stove before you wash your dishes, and make sure you got water to flush, make sure I got water for my cooler. There's a lot of things you have to do. You don't just get up and do your regular routine.
You just jumped right to that, the
Yes.
fact that you don't have water.
No water.
When did you know that that was happening? Did you get a warning?
Yeah, I opened the tab and just, that was it.
Thelma has gone without running water for 5 years. As the drought got worse, her well water started shrinking. She says her new neighbor, an almond orchard, sucked up what was left. And the reason why you can see that that's green and this is completely brown and decaying is the fact that the farmers were able to drill much further into the ground than she was, essentially getting all that groundwater. Another almond farm is just across the street. They're basically drilling to get the groundwater that you were drinking before your taps went dry.
Right.
Do you ever feel that these guys are using your water?
Yeah, it feels like they're taking it, they just literally took it right away. Yeah, but I would be breaking the law if I went over there, opened up one of those and said, well, let me get me a glass of water for coffee.
For decades, groundwater in California has been unregulated. It's a game of finders keepers. And the finders are those with the biggest drills. They can just take water out from under their neighbors' homes, leaving them high and dry. That's how Thelma lost her water. And here in Fairmead, she's far from alone.
We had the Coopers, my uncle, Bobby Lee Williams, my aunt Caroline Williams, a couple other people on my mom's block. It's quite a few people. It's a lot of people.
Would you say it's the majority of the town?
It is the majority of the town.
Water is the talk of the town. How to pay for it, how to get it, and how to keep it. Thelma buys water by the jug. And how often do you do this?
Maybe twice a day. They're 5-gallon bottles, and I have these two here, and then I have more that's already full in my car. So those are the ones.
I can see your car is absolutely filled with them.
With water, yes.
So you're doing this every single day,
Yes,
sometimes twice a day.
day.
So not only are you suffering by not having this water, you're sort of forced to have a serious workout.
Yes.
It's not just the wells that have gone dry. We drove out to the Fairmead Reservoir and were stunned by what we saw and what we didn't see. You know, it's really amazing. This used to be a boat launch. Everything that you're looking at that's brown, at some point used to be blue. It was all covered in water. People back in town tell me that they used to come here to swim. It's amazing because this is one of the many ways in which this small town has been completely changed by the drought. People used to hang out here, and they just don't do that anymore. It all dried up about 4 years ago. In nearby Chowchilla, we spot a farmer herding his cows. His name is Cristiano Ramos. He tells us he used to have 60 more cows, but sold them when water on his farm ran dry. So for 5 months, you haven't had water?
No agua.
And he didn't have the money to drill another hole in the ground. No more water here now.
No.
He's been a farmer here for more than 25 years, but maybe not for much longer. If the drought doesn't break, he'll have to find some other way to make a living. We finished the day driving through another town, which we soon learned doesn't live up to its name, La Grande. We stop at the Rancho Market, where the talk is all about getting out.
My coworker moved to North Carolina because there's no work out here.
There's no work because there's no water.
There's no water. And he didn't know what he was stepping into, but he said it had to be better than California where there is no water.
Not everyone can move. That takes money. Money many have already spent trying to survive this long. So they are stuck in this parched valley. Some are turning to Catholic charities in Merced.
How much? 30 pounds.
Here, workers can hardly keep the shelves stocked with drought boxes, filled with enough food to feed a family of 4.
I am seeing just more individuals that are not making ends meet.
Dina Medeiros runs this center. She says more and more families are showing up asking for help. The drought is turning farmers into beggars. Are you now seeing people coming in and relying on those drought boxes?
Yes, because
for their sustenance?
I've received 565 boxes this month so far. I was out of those boxes and I just got 200 more boxes.
Less water means fewer jobs. Fields are lying fallow. Farms are being put up for sale. People are losing their homes, ending up on the streets.
About 25% of our homeless population was affected by the drought.
The drought is a rolling disaster, flattening town after town all across the valley floor. In tiny Dos Palos, we meet longtime resident Kathy Fowler, who runs a food bank.
I do not believe that a year from now that this street will be any cars at all driving down it.
Yes or no? Do you directly attribute that to the drought?
Absolutely. We're a farm town. We gotta have water. That's what our people do. They're farm workers. Everything is related to the farms. If the farms aren't producing, we're not.
Let's take a drive.
Okay.
Yeah, show me around town. Kathy gives us a tour of Dos Palos.
This land used to have corn. This one actually has not been rented for about 6 years. That building just went out of business.
Dos Palos was hurting before the drought, but hard times are in overdrive now. For every store that's open, there's one that's closed. Just about every block has a boarded up house or business. I see at least 10 buildings within about 100 yards of me right now that are either boarded up or completely destroyed. It's just completely desolate. And just when it seems like it can't get any worse, Kathy takes us 20 miles west to Mendota. It's long struggled with poverty, but now it's also running out of water.
All of their drinking water has to be trucked in, and it's getting worse. You know, at one time they had water here, lots of water. And now she said there's places where they don't even have water.
At this farm labor camp, a couple tells us their family of 7 lives on just 2 gallons a day. That's all they can afford since their hours were cut at the fields. When I walk around here, it reminds me of old photographs of the Dust Bowl.
Yes, it does. As a matter of fact, I lived there as a child, as a teenager. There literally was no water. Michael, I believe we are right on the verge of becoming what I saw as a child. And I think that's what frightens me so much. And nobody seems to be understanding that we are really in the middle of a very, very desperate situation. How are these people going to move? They don't have the money. Where are they going to go?
Last year, California pledged $600 million towards drought-stricken communities throughout the state. Driving through a dozen or so rural communities, you realize help can't come soon enough. These towns are not only dying, some are actually sinking into the earth. The unregulated and perhaps unsustainable drilling of groundwater has literally made the land collapse. We leave the Central Valley with the feeling people are just waiting for help from above. Next stop, where the trees are dying and the lakes are sand pits, apocalyptic images from America Tonight's road trip through California's epic drought. Our drive takes us through the Sierra Nevadas, where we find a community that could go up in flames at any moment. Only problem, they're running out of water. We're off-roading it for a mountain climb to 4,300 feet and a bird's-eye view of what 4 years of drought does to a forest. And it isn't pretty. I'm standing at an epicenter. This is the geographic center of the state. It's also the epicenter of a major disaster. California's trees are dying, and nowhere is it worse than right here. This is the southern Sierra Nevada, gateway to Yosemite, prone to fires, and now home to over 10 million dead trees, and counting.
The drought has caused a lot of trees to die just straight from drought. And we've also compounded that with the bug kill. The western pine beetle and some other beetles are attacking the ponderosa pine.
I mean, would you consider this a natural disaster?
Well, ordinarily you lose 5% of your trees a year. Right now we're looking at losing 50% of our trees in certain species. So it's a slow motion disaster.
This bounty of dead trees is pure gasoline for fires. Cal Fire Assistant Chief and 8th generation resident Rich Drozen has never seen anything like this before.
What we're experiencing now is not normal. We're well outside the normal.
This has become the new normal for Mariposa resident Marshall Petrich. The day we meet him, he's having 14 trees on his property cut down.
My wife and I figured out that in the last 4 years, we've probably cut down 80 trees on our property.
Did you say 80?
Yeah.
Half were cut down just last year. Marshall is lucky. Cal Fire got a grant to pay for this clearance. It can cost a homeowner up to $1,200 to drop just one tree, money not everyone can afford. So thousands of dead trees remain standing like colossal matchsticks. There's a local irony here. Residents bought here for the trees. Now those who can't or won't sell are hanging on despite them. Do you say to yourself ever or to each other, well, you know, where do we go from here if this gets any worse?
What's the alternative? Anywhere in the Sierras, this is going on all over the Sierras.
Defending your home is one thing, but actively fighting fires in a town running out of water is another. This pond is nearly dry, the one next to it empty. Drozen's team must travel farther for water, tripling their response time. But what really shocked us was what we found an hour away. We were warned it would be quite a sight, and it was. I'm standing on the bottom of Lake McClure, or at least what's left of it. And what's left of it is just mounds of old drying dust, no doubt what used to be mud, debris that was long forgotten, and plant life that's making a home between the cracks at the bottom of this lake bed. It's a moonscape that just extends for miles and miles and miles. Just 4 years ago, this lake was filled to the rim, all the way to that tree line. Now look at it. If this lake completely dries up, it'll eliminate yet another source of water for the firefighters. And 30 minutes away, this is what greets you when you arrive at Lake Don Pedro. Awfully low and apparently dropping by the day.
The water is down since Friday. Yeah.
How much would you say, Lon? At least about a foot?
Tom said it went down.
Yeah. Jimmy said he looked about it was about a foot and a half.
Kind of looks like it to me.
I was born and raised here. Never seen it like this before.
At nearby LaGrange, we stopped for a game of pool and learned residents here can only count on about 2 more weeks of water before their taps run dry.
It's very bad here.
Resident Jessica Coleman is worried about how she'll take care of her family and defend her home from fire without water. So you've actually discussed the possibility of moving?
Yes.
It's that bad?
It's pretty bad, yeah.
And other people have discussed it as well?
Yeah, and if you go drive around our neighborhood and everything, you see a bunch of for sale signs, and people have already started moving.
Jessica could drill a well, but it'll cost her $30,000.
They don't even promise that you'll find water. It's just to dig the first hole, and then you have to keep going deeper. And
So are you at that point now where you've got to start digging a well?
We're getting close to it. We're getting close to it.
Driving through this old gold rush country, we're startled by just how dry everything is, from the fields to the mountains and into the towns. You can't help but fear that if the drought doesn't destroy this, a wildfire will.
It's all about the drought. A lot of people that moved up here now want to move away, but they can't afford to. They can't afford to sell their house. They can't afford to drill another well, or they can't afford to go through the steps. So their quality of life has changed.
The route back to Mariposa is 40 miles on Route 49, one of California's first gold rush towns. It was founded on pure grit. Even though the folks know they're up against Mother Nature, you get the sense they won't go down without a fight. But they all admit they've never seen a drought like this. When we come back, a strange forgotten place that might signal just how dangerous the drought is. Odd, beautiful, bizarre. An ecological nightmare and health catastrophe in the making. Our last stop is where the sea is dying. A 3-hour drive southeast to a remote stretch of California's parched Sonoran Desert. We're off the I-5 in the southeastern wedge of the state. It's 102 degrees and the mercury probably hasn't yet settled. We're heading towards the Salton Sea, which is actually the largest lake in the state of California, and it's drying up. The fallout from that could be disastrous. Approach the lake from a distance, and it's deceptively beautiful. Postcard perfect, but not up close. Oh, the smell. When you get to the beach, it becomes pretty clear what that foul odor is all about. It's dead fish. Within about 10 feet of me, there are literally dozens of them. And if you took a walk along the beach, you'd see hundreds, if not tens of thousands of carcasses. It's clear that the heads are the last things to rot. And take a look at this. I mean, this looks initially like some seashells, but on closer inspection, it's a combination of pebbles, sand, and I think fish body parts. This whole place has a strange poetic beauty about it, the mountains off in the distance. But this community has clearly been abandoned, at least sections of it. This whole area that I'm standing on used to be underwater, but now this is all that's left. Today, the Salton Sea is a forgotten place. No one in sight for miles. Once there were marinas, boat slips, and prime waterfront property waiting for weekenders. Today, just desolation and an eerie silence. We head out to meet some of the people who still live around what's left of the Salton Sea. This is the oldest bar in town, the ironically named Ski Inn, owner Wendell Southwood. This was the bar and restaurant.
That was the dining room back here, that building.
Wendell and his friends will remind you the lake was once called the California Riviera, one of the state's top destinations in the 50s and 60s, back when you could catch a 3-foot corvina.
Charter boats for fishing and water skiing and carousing. It was the Rat Pack, I forgot.
But residents haven't caught a corvina or any other big fish for a very long time. The sea is shrinking. Scientists say it's an ecological time bomb. The loss of bird habitats, property values, and increased public health costs could reach as high as $70 billion over the next 30 years, according to a Pacific Institute report. They call this the accidental sea. Formed in 1905 when the Colorado River breached a dike and spent the next 2 years flooding into the low-lying Salton Sink. Rainfall and salty runoff from farms kept the lake filled. But water levels have dropped since the drought. And as part of a legal agreement, since 2003, the local water authority has been transferring some of that farm water to San Diego County. The Salton Sea is a victim of California's messy water wars. The bottom line is San Diego and some of the coastal cities, as a result of the drought, needed more water. And they got their water from the district up here.
That's true.
and they pay for that water, they pay for the water conservation measures.
Governor Jerry Brown recently tapped ecologist Bruce Wilcox to figure out a way to save the Salton Sea. A major concern, all this toxic dust being increasingly exposed on the lake bed as the water recedes.
This is an agricultural area. Most of the runoff has some level of pesticides and fertilizers in it. It's not a large amount, but over time, as it settles into the bottom of the lake, the old lake bed, as it picks up in the dust, all of those minerals and all of that contaminants go into the dust stream and into people's lungs.
Some experts worry the dry lake bed could generate up to 100 tons of dust per day and travel as far as Los Angeles, potentially exposing millions of people. 30 miles south in the farming town of El Centro, we meet a mother who believes the dust is making her kids sick. Hi, Dolores.
Yes.
Nice to meet you. I'm Michael. Dolores Aguilar's children, 2-year-old Alberto and 9-year-old Giselle, both have asthma. Mornings always start like this.
Everyday thing, and then when the weather change, it gets worse. Like sometimes I have to take him to the hospital. At least I take him to the hospital like 5 times a year.
Wow.
And every 4 hours, I have to use the machine.
Every 4 hours?
Every 4 hours.
The officials at Alberto's school tell us more and more kids are getting asthma, and they warn the problem is worse in Calexico, a border town only 15 minutes away. Here, the school district has resorted to flying flags to signal good and bad air quality days. We see them as we drive up. Today's a good day, but nearly everyone we talk with suffers from asthma.
I did not have asthma growing up. I left the valley many years ago for my military service. I returned an adult, and I got asthma when I returned.
You have kids?
Yes, two of my 3 kids have asthma. There's a lot of asthma in the valley.
In fact, Calexico has the highest rate of people with respiratory diseases in California. They are, in a way, another kind of casualty of the drought. How did we get to this point?
By assuming that the water would never run out.
We meet up with environmental journalist Chris Clark. Just 10 years ago, the water was 3 feet deep here. He's worried about more than just the sand and the wind and the dead fish in the sea. He says as the drought continues and the days get hotter, few workers will be able to pick crops when the 120-degree days become 135. How will that impact the Imperial Valley, one of the nation's major agricultural areas?
People that come here and work in the farms, they're used to heat. They're not afraid of working hard. They're very motivated, but there is a point at which even a motivated person just can't take a certain amount of heat, and it's going to change the way we do things here.
The Salton Sea may be California's canary in a coal mine.
I'd say that the drought is the new normal for a lot of the state, and here in the Salton Sea we can see where a lot of the state might be in 70 years. Not all going to be salt pans desiccated with dead fish lying on them, but it's sort of the advance guard for the rest of California. The drought makes itself felt here first, and even the redwood forest might not be too far behind.
The notion of California being the golden state, those days are over?
California can still be a great place to live. We just have to get used to not wasting water.
Thanks for joining us for this special edition of America Tonight. I'm Michael Oku. Good night.